A couple times a week I get an email or a phone call, people asking how the auto-tune feature works on the ECU Master. So I did actually make a video last year, but the camera died halfway through, and I just finished tuning the car and didn't get back to it. So I'm doing another one today, so it's a good time to kind of go through this. So very briefly, we've got an ECU Master EMU. It's going into a car. And I'll show you how the auto-tune on it works. Before you start, you should always download the latest software from ECU Master. And I got it's ecumaster.com/TV. So we're gonna download the software first, upgrade the unit's firmware, load in a base map, and then we'll continue from there. Another thing is, I just wanted to mention, when I upgrade firmware, I prefer to do it on the bench, just powered. Basically, you just need the gray 18 and the black pin 17, I believe it is, just wired, through a little adapter that I have for 12 volts. So just makes life easier. Most ECUs, and I just have a habit of, I like to disconnect the injectors and I like to disconnect the coils and stuff like that when you're upgrading firmware, because some of them can do weird stuff. I've never had a problem with ECU Master, but frankly, I usually flash them on the bench before I even start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download the latest software. I'm going to upgrade the firmware. I'll set up a quick base map, and then we'll be back. Hi there. Okay, so I've set up the base map for all the basic parameters that this car needs. The sensor setup, the crank triggers. I mean, if your dealer was nice to you, he hopefully updated the firmware and put a base map in your ECU for you for your application. If not, you'll have to download a base file from the ECU Master site, or get one from ECU Master or whatever you're doing. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going through the Lambda table and just giving it some rough targets for tuning. Nothing fancy. Tuning's an iterative process. What you're doing is, you're gonna target a Lambda value, let's say. You're gonna get it there, then you're gonna find the best timing for that Lambda. Then you can try changing it richer, leaner, and then at that new spot, the timing requirement is going to change. You'll have to change it. So this first, the whole intention of this first kind of Lambda target table is just a pretty generic, safe target while we dial in this VE table. So I didn't want to go one Lambda at idle and stuff. Some cars prefer a little rich, especially a new combo, whatever, it doesn't matter. So we got 0.94. As we get into boost around 100 kPa, we're dipping down to 0.8. We're not gonna push it very hard or very high on this particular car, so it's a good start. You can see the VE table here is all 40s. Let me see if I can just kind of move this over a little bit. Oh, okay, so before we start there, I should show you most base maps I've seen from ECU Master have this fueling strategy right here that you see highlighted in yellow as basic AFR. We're gonna work in advanced Lambda. It's far better, just keep it there. And then we've entered all our sensor data correctly. We've put in our injector size and injector dead time. All that has to be right before you go, tweaking the VE table. So all that's already done. We're just gonna throw in a bogus VE table here, just make something up just so we can get the car running, and then we'll show you how the auto tune works. So, and the other thing, EGO feedback. Give it 10-15%, whatever. Make sure it's working. That way, it just makes it easier. Makes the car easier to drive with an untuned VE. All right, so basically just somewhere around idle and wherever you think it's going to idle for both RPM and KPA. I'm going to put like 60 as a V value there. That's cool. I'm going to throw up 80 pretty well everywhere else, not in boost. Probably go 90 actually, but it doesn't matter. We'll get there. Just make it, and in boost we'll go 110 just to keep it safe. Right? Sure, in this column we'll go, actually we'll just blend over from the 50. Go like this. Control H. I mean, you know, it's not rocket science. We're going to be tuning all of this. So basically this will get us up and running and driving. Now, if everything is set up right, this will run your car. You might even be able to go down the track with this. I mean, it'll be dead rich in some of these areas, but it will run the car. You might foul the plugs on the way to the dyno, but you know, it should run it. Just keep an eye on the wideband sensor reading and you'll be okay. So I'm just going to store that. And that's it. So now we're going to plug this into the car, get it started, get it warmed up, and we'll finally go through the auto tune setup. Of course, we're using the best dyno made for tuning, in my opinion. My mainline trusty Dynalog deal. It's pretty fantastic. Just wanted to show one of the reasons I really like this is the CAN bus integration with the ECU. So basically, if you can hear it, the car is up and running. I've got some very basic ECU parameters set up here. So we're actually looking what the ECU is recording for RPM. The AFR1 is actually my wideband. The air temperature, coolant temperature, and the lambda reading from the built-in wideband. So, and we've set up the alarms for the air and water temp, so if something gets hot or whatever, it'll flash at you, and you know, you can take appropriate action. So you can hear it, you know, that bullshit base map that we had, it's running the car. There is one spot I had to change where I had the 80, is because it's idling a little bit higher than our target. It's idling at 1500, so I had to make those cells 60 instead of 80. And you know, not bad. We're not gonna do any damage there. So we're getting pretty close to being able to start. Our coolant's at 73. This is the row that I told you about that I had to make 60 because it started off idling cold at 1600, and 80 was just too much. It was idling into the 10s for air fuel, so I just put that whole kind of block at 60. So basically, if you missed what I did, just kind of a area around idle and whatnot here at 60, kind of goes into 80 and the part throttle, and then it blends into 110 by where we're going to start hitting boost at about 100 kPa. It depends on elevation. Over on this side, I set up my data logger. So this is a graph. This is the magic. If this thing is running, it can generate you a V table. So what you need to know, this doesn't work like a traditional V auto tune where you drive in a cell and it's adjusting it while you're driving and whatever. You go for a drive, you log all the spots that you can get into in this table, and you tell it to, after you're done, you hit auto tune and it'll generate an alternate V table or a suggested V table, and that's how it works. Down here, this is the generic tune display, just has all the common parameters I watch. I'm also watching ego correction, and like I said, the dyno right now has got the alarms for coolant temp, and you know, we're going to steady state this thing. I'm not going to be real hard on it for the sake of this video. I'll probably only steady state it up to like 4400, and very quickly too. But anytime you're doing any sort of steady state work, make sure you have a lot of airflow. I have a pretty monstrous fan, moves a lot of air. You know, we're not going to have any overheating issues, but just be wary that you know, you could set things on fire pretty fast if you don't got good airflow, not only into the engine bay but underneath the car and, you know, everywhere else. All right, so 75, we're okay. We're going to reset this this log graph. We're just going to hit stop, and then the little eraser, you can see that erases it. It says you want to erase the log. Yes. Now this is going to be tricky because I'm by myself, so I'll be driving, trying to look through the camera to see what areas we're hitting and try load the dyno. Yeah, it's going to be tricky. So we hit start, and we are now logging. Oh, by the way, don't have your cursor on here, on this graph. While you have it there, it's pointing out the spots that it's passing through, and then this turns blue and it's displaying where you're pointing with the cursor. So it screws up some people. You just have it off the graph somewhere else on the screen, and you'll be okay. So, I'm not sure how low, I don't know where this car is gonna, what the lowest vacuum point is that it'll do. That's the nice thing about low inertia dynos, like the small twin rollers, like the Dyno Dynamics in the main line. You can hit fairly low vacuum points. Like, I never have to touch up a car once I finish it here. You know, some people say, oh, I got to touch it up on the street. You really don't have to if everything's set up correctly. So, let's slow that down a little bit. And, oh, that's okay. We might be able to do 800 RPM on this car. It's running pretty good. Let me back off the throttle. So basically, the dyno's going to control the RPM or the speed. It's actually set to roller speed right now, and my foot's going to do the manifold. So over here, you can see it's not too bad actually where it's at. The AFR lambda targets are close, and the wideband's only correcting 97, so 3%. Pretty good. So we're going to drive in that spot a little bit. Then we're going to give it a little more throttle, and we're going into the next the 70 kPa column, if you can see that, hopefully. And then we're gonna go to the 85. It's bouncing around a little, so it's not entirely happy driving under load that low, but we'll do it. We might not be able to hit 100 here where we are at our elevation. The static, we're about 90 kPa, so it's going to be hard to hit 100 at that speed. That would technically be boost here. Oh, there we go. We're at 1200 RPM. A few seconds there. A few seconds there. It's still bouncing around quite a bit. We might have to apply some filtering to the map. We don't know yet if that's the car doing that, you know, the engine, or, you know, maybe the map sensor needs a little bit of filtering. So we'll see if it straightens out under higher RPM. So there's a bit of a buck there, and again, we can't quite hit that 100. So we could go in and put a 90 column. I don't care for now. I just want to demo this. So now we're gonna let the dyno take us to 1600. All right, and we'll hold it a second there. Second there. Oh, yeah, bouncy spot there. Go a little higher there. Right, and really doesn't like, really rich there at that 110, so I overdid it too soon. And we'll go up next spot. Sorry, I can't see if we're... There we are. Okay, good. A little faster. Or sorry, a little more throttle. A little more throttle. A little more throttle. A little more throttle. Okay. And then we'll go 24. Quite get down any lower than 40 kPa for now, so we'll fix that later. We're going to go up here and hit stop on our log. I can't see where the mouse is through the camera. There it is. Okay, stop. Good. That was great. So car drove, it hicked up a little when I started to get into this 110 area, so that is clearly too fat. So from here, it's very easy. You go up top and under tools, you go auto tune. It's going to throw some options at you for RPM ranges. So default stuff here, 500 to 15,000, 0 TPS to 100 TPS, 20 kPa to 400 kPa, and transient delay 500. That's fine. So we're going to lower that to 100 because we weren't doing a lot of transients, right? That's more if you're street tuning and you want to filter out any sort of transient acceleration enrichment. And of course, we're working with VE Table 1. This software has 2 VE tables you could use, so we're applying it to one. We hit OK, and this is what it generates. So I'm going to blow this up a little so it's easier to see. Just, whoops. Just drag it. Okay. So the areas with the crosshatch, obviously we didn't drive in there, so it didn't do anything with them. The proposed changes it has for our VA table are the areas kind of without the crosshatch. So it's pretty easy. All you do is you highlight the area you want to apply. So let's say for whatever reason you didn't want to do the idle areas or whatnot. Like, we don't care. We're going to do them all. You would not highlight it. So you highlight what you want to apply. So we're just going to, you can highlight this whole table. It's just going to apply the colored points anyway. But you can choose, let's say you only wanted this top column for whatever reason. Anyway, we're going to do the whole thing, right? And you right click it and you go apply selection. You have two choices. Apply it 50%. So if you've done this 1 or 2 times and it's fairly close, you might want to only apply half the changes it sees just to be safe, or I don't know. I don't have a problem with it, so we're going to go 100%. So it's going to copy this proposed VE into our VE table. So there's a little bit of a hiccup there because we were running closed loop and it had been taking some fuel out. So here's the result. I'm going to close this. Now you can see, so this is our O2 correction now. So it took all the math from that cell. It took the O2 correction, it took the target error from our VE, and with just one kind of iteration of doing this, it's only correcting 1% now. So that's really good. We're very, very, very close to our target with only one, even 1.5%. Like, that's splitting hairs. Usually if you can get within 3%, you're laughing. So there's our new VE table there with the changes applied to it. And it looks pretty good. We kind of missed area, didn't get enough samples here, so I'm just going to quickly smooth that out, just so there's less. The less correction you need to make, the more accurate it's generally going to be, I found. So to interpolate vertically with the ECU Master, default keys is Control L. So it's just going to turn that 100 into that. Now, remember what I mentioned that your 100 column we don't need to really do up here, because generally speaking, if your map sensor set up right, your inlet air temperatures are set up right, and there's nothing crazy going in the engine, this 100 column is generally going to carry this way pretty good. So we're just going to copy it like this. Actually, we're going to make this the same as the one beside it. We never drove there, actually. We'll make it the same as these. We're going to take this, first of all, we're going to take the 800 RPM column. We didn't drive at 400 RPM, but we know it's not going to be crazy like that. It's going to be more like the 800 RPM column. Excuse me. Control Z. Control V. Good. Now we're going to take that 100 kPa column. Copy it over here. And then we're going to blend between. It's just Control H for horizontal blend, and then it'll just fill it all with the same kind of values. Also, remember when I said we couldn't really get any lower than 40. If you were really concerned with part throttle drivability, you might readjust these load points so you had more. So we couldn't hit 25, but we could have potentially hit a 30. So we might want to add one there. Again, I'm just showing you how that works. I don't care. I'm going to copy this column then down to these two. just so it looks pretty. It doesn't really matter. We're not, again, going to be able to hit those maybe on decel or something. And then these high load areas, I mean, we didn't get to above 4800. I didn't really need to beat on this card for this demonstration here. So so let's just see what our VA table looks like so far. So there we go. It's not fantastic, but you know, it's better than it was. So there you go. That was pretty easy. You could just keep driving it around or doing it a couple more times to get that kind of dialed in even closer and hit more spots, a little higher RPM. But I hope that kind of shows you how easy this is, and you know, you're ready now to actually do some tuning.